Well, hello, my fellow fans, and welcome to Wake Nation 21, the first fan fueled YouTube channel dedicated to everything Wake Forest athletics. Wake Forest athletics, baby. My name is Josh Chilton, and I am your dedicated co host who is here today all by my lonesome. Yes, it's very sad. We are going to miss my regular co host and brother, Shane Chilton, who can't join us tonight as his responsibilities in life far outweigh mine, especially as the father of a new 9 month old, my new 9 month old nephew, whom we both treasure more than anything else in the world. Tonight, we are going to look at the ACC standings. We're going to revel in the embarrassment that the Tar Heels experienced last night. And most importantly, we're going to preview Wake Forest's upcoming game this Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time at a Legacy Stadium against the Western Carolina Catamounts. But first, if you appreciate what we're building here at Wake Nation 21, please take a moment. It only takes a second. Hit that like button. It really helps us reach more Demon Deacon fans. And if you've been following us for a while and are not subscribed, do that as well, as we are excited to keep creating this content and expanding the media landscape for Wake Forest athletics on YouTube. So I want to start by looking at some ACC standings and just kind of get a feel for where we are after the first week. And so it's in alphabetical order. So you see Wake Forest at 1-0 is last, but a lot of the conversations I'm hearing just in college football world is about how relatively strong the ACC looks this year in comparison to past years. So Boston College, they went 1-0. They beat who did they beat? I think they beat Fordham. So they pounded Fordham 66-10. Cal beat Oregon State by about 14 or 13 points, which hopefully bodes well for our matchup with Oregon State coming up in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Duke started off slow against Elon, but ended up destroying them in the end. Darian Mensah looked very good. Castellanos for Florida State was a revelation against Alabama. Georgia Tech took out Colorado in a close game. Louisville pounded, I think it was Eastern Kentucky. Miami beat Notre Dame. NC State pulled it out against ECU. Pitt pounded whoever they played. I can't remember who they played. Duquesne. Pitt pounded Duquesne 61-9. SMU went 1-0. Virginia went 1-0. And even that some of the teams that lost, especially Syracuse, who played a very close game to Tennessee, and Virginia Tech, who also played a strong game against South Carolina, looked relatively strong. So I think us coming into the season having the quote unquote easiest schedule in the nation or in the ACC or in the Power Four, that could change very quickly. So we'll see what happens moving forward with that. I also wanted to share something that just brings me immense joy after all of the buildup. Like, I can find myself pulling for a Duke in a certain matchup against, some other Power Four conference team just for conference pride. I can do the same thing for the puppy pack when they're playing against someone and, the reputation of the ACC might be at stake. Like, I can find myself pulling for those teams, but I can never bring myself to pull for the Tar Heels. And after this whole week of just media frenzy, the whole Bill Belichick era starting, and them coming out on the first drive, going up 7-0. The hype was just reaching the all-time levels, right? And Tar Heel Nation was going crazy. The stadium was packed. They were all just in celebration mode, only to empty the stadium by halfway through the third quarter. Just what a joy it was to experience such a debacle at the hand of the Tar Heels. And I just want to thank you, Carolina, for giving me such a great experience after, a tough, hard fought win for Wake Forest. Thank you for doing that for me. I know my buddy over at Tar Heel Huddle, he's had some comments about our performance. I haven't watched your reaction yet to what happened last night in Chapel Hill, but I'm excited to see your perspective on what took place. But we'll get through that, and it just puts a smile. You can see the smile on my face, and we'll get into the main thing here tonight, which is to preview our matchup against Western Carolina. So, the theme of this week is that more will be revealed. We are going to find out a lot about our Wake Forest Demon Deacons this week as they take on Western Carolina. We really, the first game is just unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. The roster turnover these days in this transfer era can mean that teams are going to gel a lot more slowly. And our defense, ended up looking pretty strong, but the offense struggled in a lot of ways. I would say, especially the offensive line. So let's start with some player updates regarding us, regarding our team. The first announcement is just we're sticking with Robbie. There's no reason to pull the plug on Robbie Ashford after week one. I've seen a lot of fans calling for his head already after one game. Some didn't like his demeanor on the field. Some thought he was bailing from the pocket too quickly. I thought he made some really good plays when he was allowed to roll out and kind of, make decisions on the fly out in space. I did want him to extend that ball when he was running to make sure we got the first down. But overall, he didn't turn the ball over. He was 20 for 28 passing, and the offensive line did not play well and did not help him. And he was also without his number one running back, superstar, best running back in the nation, in my opinion, Damon Claiborne. So, from what we know, Damon Claiborne has a rib injury. I would say it's not a break, because if it was a broken rib, we would know already that he's going to be out for a number of weeks. I think it's bruised ribs. He's listed as day to day. If I were coaching Wake Forest, and I'm not coaching Wake Forest, obviously, I would hold Damon out this game, whether he's ready to go or not. I would just say, you know what? Let's not even chance it. Let's see what this team is really all about. Let's see what this program is really all about. And let's go beat Western Carolina without our best player. Sad news, and I'm really hurt for the kid because I almost said Coach Clausen, Coach Dicker, just praised how hard Clinton Richard worked as a redshirt freshman to fight his way up the depth chart and become our starting left guard. And he broke his foot like the third or fourth to last play of the game, against Kennesaw State, and he stayed in and finished the game with a broken foot. Just goes to show his toughness and his team mentality. So we don't know how long Clinton Richard is going to be out, but it's next man up. And next man up is George Stye, who's a redshirt sophomore. He's going to get the first crack at replacing Clinton Richard, according to the depth chart they put out this week. Jamarian Kennedy will be behind George Sty in case he doesn't play well or he gets injured. But it just sucks that we're missing Clinton Richard. But George Sty, now is your time. It's your chance to step up. You see him pictured here on the right. He's wearing 79, which is what he wore his freshman season, but this season he wears 73. So just know that when you see him out on the field. All right, let's get into the Catamounts, the Western Carolina Catamounts, who we've kind of had an affinity for in the Chilton household as we grew up. My mom is an alum of Western Carolina. My dad did his undergrad at Western Carolina before getting his PhD at Wake Forest. So we've always kind of pulled for the Catamounts, except when they play Wake Forest. So, I would like to see Western Carolina succeed. Obviously, that did not happen in week one, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen in week two either. They came into the season with a lot of hype. Fifth year head coach Kerwin Bell has had a 33-29 overall record at the program, but he's had winning seasons the last 3 seasons in a row. And so they were ranked 18th in the FCS polls coming into the season. They lost a heartbreaker in week one, just like a soul crushing heartbreaker, 52-45, after being up 35-7 at one point. The defense gave up 627 total yards against Gardner Webb, a fellow FCS opponent. 627 total yards, including 335 yards on the ground. They played 2 quarterbacks because their normal anticipated starter, Teron Dickens, was not in action. Now, Teron Dickens is not injured. We don't know really why he wasn't allowed to play this first game. It could have been disciplinary action. We really just don't know. But we do know he's still quote unquote with the team. He's still listed on the active roster. And he was a FCS freshman All-American as a true freshman last year. Threw 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in limited games, but he came into the season again with a lot of anticipation. And so we don't know if he's going to be coming in week two. We don't know if they're going to play the 2 guys they played against Gardner Webb. That's just a big unknown right now. They scored 42 points, like as bad as their defense was in letting Gardner Webb come back and score 52 points. They did score not 42 points, 45 points on their own accord. And they were carried by a few explosive pass plays and running back Patrick Boyd Jr. leading this potent rushing attack for them with 15 carries for 142 yards, half of which came on a 70-yard touchdown. They had a lot of explosives with their offense in their first game against Gardner Webb. And so that is something we need to be on the lookout for with their offense. So what is their offensive philosophy here at Western Carolina? As you can see there on the left, that's Patrick Boyd Jr. He's a true sophomore. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 5'10", 170 pounds, but he's quick as lightning, and he's very shifty. And they run a pro-style spread offense. They've been known in the past 3 years to be a pass-first team. They try to beat you with space and pace. They do kind of what I wanted Coach Zell to do a little bit in terms of space. They make you cover the whole field because they are going to be taking multiple deep shots per game. They like zone reads. They'll throw in some speed options. They're going to have this unpredictable style that tries to keep our defense off balance. Their possession type receiver, at least uh, through their first game, was James Tyre. He's a sophomore. This team is young. You see the sophomores all over the place. He's a 5'10", 170-pound slot slash possession receiver. Malik Knight only had one catch. He's a sophomore as well, 6'2", 185 pounds. But that one catch was like an 80-yard touchdown. So Malik Knight is someone we need to be watching over the top. We cannot let him get behind us, or it could mean problems for our defense. Zach Watson returns on their offensive line as a preseason All Southern Conference first team candidate. Their offensive line must have played pretty strong. It's hard to find any highlights of it, but for them to put up the rushing numbers they did, respectively, albeit not as much as Gardner Webb put up against them. But for Patrick Boyd to have the success he had, some of the other running backs on their team, their offensive line must have played pretty good football. What's their defense? Well, it was straight up garbage. Straight up garbage in week one. And I put a little hot seat right here. It's hard to put a coach on the hot seat after the first week, but they have a first-year defensive coordinator in Jerry Odom. Jerry Odom, for the last 8 years, had been the head coach at Tusculum University, which is a Division II program, and he had a lot of success at Tusculum. And so they brought him in as the defensive coordinator. And part of the reason that Western was ranked top 25 in the FCS coming into the season, it wasn't just because of their explosive offense. There were expectations that their defense was going to be good too. And so that did not play itself out in week one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely lacking in talent. As the Tar Heels showed us last night, you can theoretically have talent on your team like their defense theoretically had talent last night, but they could not tackle TCU's running backs to save their lives. It was just a lack of like fundamentals and coaching. So I think this Catamount defense, actually, as garbage as they were in week one, has some talent. Their nickelback, Ken Moore Jr., 5'10", 160 pounds, not the biggest guy in the world, but he had 4 interceptions last year and 36 tackles, preseason All Southern Conference first team. We've got linebacker Hayward McQueen Jr., who is a senior, a veteran, 61 tackles and 7.5 sacks last year, had 15 tackles in week one against Gardner Webb. Defensive end Caleb Fisher was, supposed to be their stud edge player, 6'3", 240 pounds, redshirt senior, All Southern Conference first team preseason. He didn't really show up in game one. And I just wanted to highlight 2 guys that I just was surprised to see on an FCS roster given their size. And it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, how couldn't they have any chance of stopping the run with such massive defensive tackles? The main guy is Jaleel Anderson. So he's a redshirt senior, 6'4", 320 pounds. So he's also preseason All Southern Conference first team. He had a 68.6 PFF grade against Gardner Webb last week. That's not the greatest grade in the world. It's also not a garbage grade. Like, it's okay. And the other guy, kind of right behind him is defensive tackle Jermichael Wilson, who's only a sophomore. But again, just the size profile surprised me at 6'3", 330 pounds. I mean, my goodness, like these guys are NFL, big NFL size defensive tackles playing at Western Carolina. He put up a 60.6 PFF grade in week one. So the defense played terrible in week one. We know that. But it theoretically has some talent. So that's something to watch out for, And so let's get into my keys for winning the game. So, in my view, this is a game where it's going to be strength versus strength and weakness versus weakness. Now, our strength up until this point, as far as we know, is our defense, right? The strength of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons through week one is the defense. And the strength of the Western Carolina team through week one is the offense. So their strength is going against our strength. And we have to win that battle. And we also have to win the perceived weakness versus weakness game. So our offense is the perceived weakness after only scoring 10 points against Kennesaw State in week one, which aside, I think Kennesaw State might play around with getting bowl eligible this year. I think they're a lot better than everyone thought they would be. But our perceived weakness is the offense, and their perceived weakness, and from the stats, obvious weakness is their defense. So we have to win both of those areas to dominate this game. With or without Damon Claiborne, our running game must impose its will against a team that just gave up 335 yards rushing to an FCS opponent. If Gardner Webb can run for over 330 yards against Western Carolina, we damn sure at least better be able to run for 250, 300. We need to be right there with them because, like, that's a bad sign if Gardner Webb can run on them like that with their mobile quarterback, but we can't. And again, I'm going to put the theoretical ball in your hand, Coach Zell. We have kind of the same dynamics going for us as a Gardner Webb did. We have the mobile quarterback, we have some running backs. Whether Damon plays or not, I want to see Ty Clark with a 70% snap share if Damon is out. And I want us running the ball and dominating the line of scrimmage. And that gets to my third point. Our offensive line must play much better than it did week one. And we're down a starter. But we need to be able to consistently impose our will at the line of scrimmage. A lot of run blocking is technique, but also a lot of run blocking is will and anger and angst and attitude. And I need to see a little more of that from the offensive line this week. We need to make the Catamounts, my number 4 point, one dimensional. We have to stop them from running the ball because that is their strength. Yes, they're going to take some deep shots down the field. Yes, they're going to try to run against us the way they ran against Gardner Webb. They're going to have a lot of read options. They're going to use tempo in a similar way, not as much as Kennesaw State, because I frankly don't think anyone can pull it off quite how Kennesaw State did, but they're going to use tempo. And we need to make them one dimensional by stopping the run. And that means for me, I need to see more Jaden Loving with Zach Lovovishin on the field together. I need to see more of that as opposed to Dallas matched up with Zach. I need a little more size on that defensive line. And then I need our linebackers filling gaps. And then number 5, the penalties. Coach talked about it, especially in the first half. We need those penalties cut in half at least. And we need to just overall be playing higher IQ football all around from the coaches to the players. The coaches need to call a better game, especially on the offensive side, and the players need to play a better game on doing their part. And my final score prediction is that Wake Forest beats Western Carolina 28-13. Our offense comes alive a little bit. We're able to hold a pretty potent FCS offense to 13 points. It's not a blowout. It's not going to satisfy all of the fans, but it's going to be enough to give us some more positive momentum as we move forward and as we gear up to start conference play against NC State. So that's my video for tonight. We kept it relatively quick. Again, please like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Help me get this out to more Wake Forest fans. We want to keep growing this community, and we just appreciate everyone who watches. I am going to sign out now. Hopefully, we'll get Shane on here for the post-game reaction after the game on Saturday. We appreciate you for watching, and go Deeks.